Imagine for a moment that there was no reward or punishment for whatever you did in this life. Would you still worship God? Would you still love God for fun? Just because you love God, purely because you're interested in knowing the Creator. What if God ain't going to give you any goodies? What if God ain't going to give you anything extra? What if God ain't going to punish you? Would you still want to get to know Him anyway? Can you love God anyway? Kind of like if you're married. Some people get married and they have like a wife or husband. They do it and it's all business, man. It's a business arrangement. Like back in the day, right? Back in the day, it was a business arrangement for a lot of people. But can you be married to someone without any expectation whatsoever of anything in return except for just to have a great time and experience your life together and have fun, regardless of what happens? That's a different kind of love than whether or not you're going to get beat with a stick if you don't, or whether or not you're going to get handouts if you do. How many people here, press 1 if you're interested in having a direct experience with God? Press 1 if you're interested in God coming into your life right now and say, hey, what's up? Appearing before you immediately and going, hey, I'm God. How you doing? How many people want to be in the direct presence of Christ? But if you are interested in knowing God, or let's say that you're an atheist, you're interested in disproving God, disproving His existence, then this is a way you can disprove God if you want. Practice some of the things that I'm about ready to throw at you. And if you were trying to disprove God and you walk this path, you might run right into God. Because God is love. And there is a kind of love that exists that doesn't require anything but love. There's a kind of love that exists that's way, way beyond what I'm going to get out of it. If you went your whole life and you did everything right, and you praised God your whole life, and you went to hell anyway, would you still praise God? How many Christians do you know, they die, go straight to hell? Would they still be praising God? If they're not, then they don't really love God. Because you know what I'd be doing? I'd be praising God in hell. They would kick me out of hell, man. I gotta tell you, I know that I'm not going to hell because if I get thrown in hell, guys, I'm going to be praising God in hell. The demons aren't going to like me very much because there is no hell that I'm not going to praise God in. Many people are tested in that in their life. They go through hell in their life. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, with no promise of heaven or hell, chose to go into the furnace purely because they love their God. If they died and got completely obliterated, from their perspective, so be it. We love God anyway, even if the result sucks. That's a different kind of love. A lot of people are motivated by goodies, but I'm about ready to unlock something. There's a certain kind of euphoria, a certain kind of perk that you get for loving God just because you love God. I'm going to explain to you how that works. How many people are out there seeking God religiously, want to experience God directly? And there are a few. There are a few like that, but there ain't many. There's a pastor that I talked to a few months ago, and I asked him, do you want to know God directly? Do you want God to appear in your life and just talk to Him? Do you want to experience God right now? And he said, no thanks. This is a pastor, a Christian pastor. And he's like, the Bible's good enough for me. And I really I paused at that for a moment. I paused at that for a moment. Because I can understand the critique that an atheist might have from a pastor who believes that way. Because for an atheist, they need God to appear before them and say, hey, I'm right here. But this particular pastor is not interested in seeing God. Not interested in being in God's presence. Very interesting thing. A pastor. What's he going to do when it's time to go to heaven? Is he going to go off into another room, a dark room, and read the King James Version of the Bible by himself? So there is this mentality in Christianity, still, unfortunately. Do what's required, and since the bar has been lowered so much by Christ, from their perspective, they think it's a great idea to just do that John 3:16 thing and then go off and do what they want. But people that are a little more, look into it a little bit more than that, they realize that there's a relationship required of some sort. But does that mean that there's strings attached? Does that mean that you need to have a relationship with God so that way you go to heaven? Are you worried that Jesus said, hey, if you don't know me, you're going to hell? And is that the reason why you're a Christian? Are you okay with getting to know God? And regardless of what happens, loving God anyway? Regardless. You know, kind of like with marriage, like I said it again. Till death do us part. In sickness and in health. Can you do that with God? For eternity. But the vast majority of people who practice Christianity today do not believe in that. They don't believe in that. Right? They don't believe in that. They believe in do what you're told, have a relationship with God so you don't go to hell, or get to go to heaven, and be humbled that you're not thrown in a lake of fire. There's not too many Christians out there that are saying, hey, even if I'm totally obliterated, I praise God anyway. Not too many. Do you have fun with God? Are you enjoying this? Are you really getting into this? Right? Are you spending time with God, talking to God, seeking God, hearing God, and you're doing it off the clock? Regardless of whether anybody has helped from it or not, do you spend time, guys, with God? Because you want to. Without any kind of promise of anything. No additional crowns. Let's imagine that there is no hell for a moment. For fun. Just for fun. And everybody gets rewarded equally. Would you still worship God? If there was nothing, no rewards or no punishments for not doing it, would you still want to get to know God? Would you still want to get to know Christ? Well, what's the point of the what if? That's just not how it is. It's a thought experiment. It's an important thought experiment, guys, because it shows you how much passion you actually have for God. When God created Adam, was Adam having a good time in that garden? Adam didn't have any sort of reason or incentive whatsoever to praise God other than he knew God. Knew God personally. So that's another example of somebody in the Bible, which would be Adam. But with Adam had a problem. That even though Adam knew God, Adam felt lonely. Why did Adam feel lonely? Because Adam is not equally yoked with God. So Adam needed a companion. There's something about having fun that requires another person. You can't just have fun with yourself. You've got to be doing something to something else. Or something else has got to be happening to you. To be purely alone and utterly alone is the opposite of fun. And even for Adam, even though he had the animals, and even though he had all that, he had the animals, he knew God. He's seen God, I imagine. He's seen God. He knew God. He had the animals. He had the fish. He had the bugs. But that wasn't enough. Adam wasn't having a very good time because he didn't have a companion, someone who's relatively equally yoked to Adam. And I'm going to go into the psychology of this. In my studies at EdPsych, guys, discovered this idea of the zone of proximal development. The zone of proximal development is this place that you enter whenever you're presented a problem. You should presented a problem and your skills are just enough to solve that problem. So instead of something being too easy and you just run right through it, or something being too hard and it makes you cry, there's this place in which the task that's in front of you and your skill set meet. If your skill set and the task meet, you enter this place called the zone of proximal development. And what happens is your degree of learning increases at a rapid rate. You're in a space, if you're actually really fine-tuned to it, you become incredibly focused and incredibly lost in that task that you're doing. A lot of people get this sensation when they're playing video games or whatever. But a lot of times, a lot of us don't feel like we're satisfied with our lives because either life is too hard or life is too easy. It's just too easy. People who have a lot of money or whatever, life's too easy, so they get depressed. And it turns out that people where life is too easy, they tend to be a lot more depressed than people where life is too hard, which is interesting. So statistically speaking, globally. But if you're in one of those two extremes, you don't have the skills to meet the challenge, or the challenge is too easy that you're bored with it. And it gives you a sense of you don't have an adequate purpose. So I'm going to talk about the importance of the other. The importance of having someone in your life that is equally yoked. As it says in 2 Corinthians, I believe. It says it in the Bible. There's a lot of biblical verses. 2 Corinthians. And also in Proverbs, it talks about how iron sharpens iron. But there's a psychological principle that goes beyond the Bible that's really useful for you to know. So in Ed Psych, they discovered that when teachers try to teach young children how to read or how to teach them math or whatever it is they're trying to teach them, that is 10 times more effective to have one of their peers teach them. So teachers have discovered, in Ed Psych, they've done a lot of research on this, that instead of the teacher themselves teaching the kids, whenever they put the kids in a position to where their peers can teach them, that they learn 10 times faster. The kids that are closer in skill level, they learn from each other much faster than if you take a professor and try to teach a kindergartner how to read. Do you see? So God put us in this position, or you could say you were born in this position, where if you are around people, you are around people who are relatively equally yoked to you already. And each person in your life is a lesson that God's trying to teach you. Or each person in your life represents an opportunity for you to grow 10 times faster than what you can do on your own, scientifically. And this, what I was talking about was young children. But from the perspective of God, we're all children. We're all children. We're all playing together. If you can learn how to play with the other people in your life, you will learn 10 times faster than you trying to do it by yourself. Because each of those playmates all have the capacity for you to accelerate your progress really, really, really fast. If you write down all the people in your life and you write down who they are and who they are relative to you, and try to figure out the lessons that they're trying to teach you. Try to really understand what the lessons that each of these people represent in your life, and you actually learn those lessons, your entire life is transformed by it. But I'm going to go another step. I'm going to a whole nother level for those few people that are ready for this next part of the message. I'm going to a whole nother level because I'm going to say that you can do a little bit more than that, guys. You can do a little bit more than that. So I'm going to show you guys a picture here. The zone of proximal development, guys. What you can do on your own is incredibly limited. And then you go, what can I do with help? What can I do when I have someone there to help me? Whether it be a teacher or whether it be someone who's a peer. A peer is even better. And then you have what's beyond your reach. The universe beyond your reach. You know, if we send a spaceship to a galaxy far, far away, that's beyond your reach. The kingdom of heaven for many people is beyond their reach. Unfortunately, knowing God directly seems to be beyond your reach. But you can find God by, instead of trying to go beyond what you can do, look at what you have already in front of you. Look what's within your reach. Look at the people that are around you in your life right now trying to help you. And you will discover that zone of proximal development. And how do you do that? So you have all these people in your life. I said, how do you learn those lessons? How do you figure out what the message is? How do I accelerate my learning 10x? What Rant Jams just said. How do I do that? You look at yourself and you look at the other person and you ask yourself, what is the middle spot? Who am I relative to this other person? The space between. The space between. Imagine that the person that you're talking to is not just another person. Imagine that you're having a dream and you're doing a dream interpretation and this person appears in your dream. Who do they represent to you? Who do they represent? You will find that there's a middle ground between each of the people in your life. Find that middle space between you and discover what are the small things that you disagree on. And try to learn those lessons. with each person in your life. God seems to be really far beyond our reach. If you don't believe in God, God's really far beyond your reach, okay? You don't even believe in that. But if you go down a level, just one level, and look at the people in your immediate circle, you will discover that you've got everything you need to grow beyond that circle. You can grow together and expand your horizons with that group around you. This is true about your wife, too. You grow together with your wife, your friends. Sometimes friends grow apart because sometimes you learn that lesson and they're out of there. But whoever's happened to be in your life at that moment, they're all there and they're trying to tell you this lesson that they've been repeating your entire life. The way God works is God tells you and trying to teach you a lesson. For example, you learn from someone in your life. And a lot of times we don't learn. We got to rehear it over and over and over and over and over again. And the moment that we listen, the moment that we realize, hey, we've been ignoring this our whole life. And those lessons are represented by people, actual people, physical beings in our life, not just angels. But real people in your life represent the lessons that you need to learn. And this is getting a little Ed Psychish, but there's a reason why. This is going to connect really, really well to how to find God in your life. So this is something else they discovered. When children and people, both adults and kids, when they enter this zone of proximal development, the closer that their skill meets that challenge. So if it's dead on, if the skill that you have is exactly what you need for the challenge that's in front of you. In other words, if you've got just enough to accomplish the task, you tend to get absorbed in that task. And time tends to go by differently. How many people have had that experience where they're working on something and they're so into it, whether it be a puzzle, a video game, reading the Bible, whatever it is, that you're just in the zone? How many people have that in the zone? That's what they're talking about. You're in the zone. Maybe it could be a sports. Maybe it could be with like working on a car. And if you feel as if it's almost doing it, the work is being done by itself. It's almost as if it's all just happening automatically. This is something they have found scientifically to be true. This is something they discovered that's universal across all human beings. That if somebody's in that zone of proximal development, that they have this sense of being lost in the task, where their conception of time, their mood shifts. And some experience this sense of euphoria, this sense of purpose, this sense of heightened, kind of like what people get on drugs, being in this zone of proximal development. Now what I'm telling you guys is a lot of people who are aiming for God, they're way off into outer space. People who are aiming for God, they're reading the entire Bible in its original Greek. And they're trying to really get at the theology. And if they're not in their element, then they're lost. It's beyond God becomes beyond their reach because they're trying to get in a spaceship and they're trying to travel to God with a spaceship, guys. And the nearest star will take like 4,000 or 40,000 years or something crazy to get to in our fastest spacecraft. That is the slowest way to God. The slowest way to God is try to go beyond your reach. Building the Tower of Babel is the slowest way. How tall does that tower got to get? You're not going to be able to get to the edge of the universe like that. A lot of people are using science in that way. I'm showing you a way that you can get to know the truth of the universe and everything there is without ever having to leave anything beyond that zone of proximal development circle. Now, you can't do it on your own. A lot of people who do Buddhism and Hinduism, they try to go off in a room, they close the door, make sure it's pitch black, and they meditate, and they meditate, and they meditate. They're not in the zone of proximal development. They are trying to do it all on their own. It doesn't work. By yourself, you're not going to be able to find the other. Okay? You can't find the other by yourself. Although I will say I was by myself at the time when God appeared before me. But at the time I was working out something that was in my zone of proximal development. I was lost in a kind of meditation that involved me learning the lessons of the people that are directly in my life. And really looking at what was right in front of me in that moment. So you can't look past the moment. You have no chance of finding God in the now if you're just reading Revelation. If you're just reading Revelations, you're going to have it's an impossible task. Unless you're John the Revelator. Now, if you're John the Revelator, you will find God. God did appear before him there. But you're not going to come to a direct experience with God just by thinking about what God's going to be like 1,000 years from now. Or what God's going to be like 10 eons from now. You're not going to get much closer to God if you're only worried about what it's going to be like after you die. You want to get closer to God, you need to see what's been put right in front of you in your life. And take it seriously if you're a Christian. Every single thing that's in front of you in your life is designed for you to get to know God, if you can hear it. And if you're not a Christian, every single person that's in your life is a tool. They're a tool to accelerate your mental growth. They don't have to be professors. The people that are in your life are already equally yoked. Learn that lesson. If you learn that lesson, you will grow with them much, much faster. You're always in a classroom. And you can say God is the teacher. But God's not always up in your business, like teaching you 1 + 1. Sometimes God puts you in small groups. Sometimes God puts you in small groups. And those small groups are designed for you to learn together. Because God knows you learn faster that way. Because He knows the science. He's known this science forever. We just discovered it. And if you can get into a place and you discover what's right in front of you, and you stop aiming for the stars, and you stop going into a dark room and having a 24-hour prayer-a-thon, and you look at what's right in your circle, what God's been telling you for years, for years. And you look at that circle, and you take the skills, whatever it is that you've got to bring to the table, and you use that to learn those lessons. You will find God. But if you miss God, at the very, very least, you will mature rapidly. Rapidly. It will completely transform your life. This is true scientifically, but this is also true spiritually. And it's another path. And so what's this have to do with having fun? A lot of people do this when they're playing. Not when they're studying, but when they're playing, just from play. When the video game is too hard, people give up. When the game is just hard enough or it looks like you could win, but lose, people are more motivated. I'm talking about motivation. What motivates us? And God is a great motivator. He knows how to put that carrot right in front of us. Or it looks like we can grab it. But it's going to take everything we got to get it. So the challenge that Christ met when he was born into this world was exactly what he was designed for. When Christ was born into this world, the life, the devil, everybody coming to him. If the devil wouldn't have challenged Jesus, the devil would have just left Jesus alone, then the devil would have been better off. If anything, the devil tempting Jesus accelerated his ministry. It accelerated it. If Jesus was fasting for 40 days in the wilderness and the devil didn't come to tempt him, Jesus would be less prepared. Your life, how you have a long things that happen in your life that prepares you for the task, your purpose. Every bit of it is preparation. Every bit of your life has been preparation for this moment. And the lessons around you were in a classroom. Every bit of Jesus' life prepared him for the cross. You go, what about my life? Does every bit of my life prepare me for the cross? It does. You practice death every night when you go to bed. You practice rebirth every morning when you wake up. I don't believe in reincarnation. Well, if you're a Christian, you believe in being born again in the Spirit. If you're a Christian, you believe you get a new body. Every single day of your life, you practice. It's practice for what's coming. And if you really want to accelerate that, look at the challenges in your life that seem like they're hard, but not quite too hard. They're reachable. If you're feeling too challenged, scale it back and go, maybe I'm aiming a little too high in the sense that I'm trying to find God in the stars. Maybe I should look around my room. Jesus didn't look past people. You know, a lot of Christians look past people when you go to church. They look past you. They're like, hi, how's the weather? They look past you. Jesus didn't do that, guys. Every person that he came in contact with, even the people he disagreed with, he really listened to them and responded. And he didn't just do it out of obedience. Jesus didn't have to listen to anybody if he didn't want to. He did it because he wanted to, for fun and out of love. There was no requirement. God didn't say, Jesus, you have to respond to the Pharisees and Sadducees. Jesus could have chose to walk away. Say, I don't like what you're saying. I'm out of here. He engaged with them purely for love and for fun and for our benefit. That it was written down. Because think about all the things that Jesus did in his life that wasn't written down. How many people know that there was a lot of stuff that Jesus did that wasn't written down? Think about all the miracles, all the people he healed. Think about everything that Jesus did as a child. Not written down. Was that a waste of time? All those miracles and things that weren't written down in the Bible, he did them regardless of whether he got glory for it or not. Loved and listened to those people that are not in the Bible. He loved and listened to them even though there was no glory in that. He healed people and it wasn't mentioned in his resume, guys. Jesus didn't get any extra glory for the people he healed that aren't in the Bible. No extra. No bonus. He might have resurrected someone else from the dead. I don't know what I'm going to get glory for in this life or the next. But I can tell you one thing. If we want to be Christ-like, we don't need to worry about that. What we do for fun that's actually where our heart is. What you want to do is where your heart is. Not just what you have to do. If you don't want to know God, that means your heart's not there. If you're doing it because you're afraid of hell, that's not enough. Because God can offer you, hey, I know that you don't really love me, but you don't want hell. Would you take that deal? What you're doing for fun. What is the most fun thing that you can do? Based off the science I presented to you. The most fun thing, this is true psychologically, this is an interesting thought. If your goal is to maximize your fun, well, that's the devil talking. No, I'm saying if your goal is to maximize your fun, really have a blast in your life, really have the most fun that you could possibly have, you look around in your life and you find a task set before you in your life where you have just enough skill to complete that task. Daniel Jackson says, Lucifer is convincing the deceitful one who knows all work and no play makes us dull spiritually. Play is important. You learn the most from play. That's what I'm telling you. The more that you're playing, the more that you're learning. The more that you're working, the more that you're a robot. Have fun with it. When you get in that space of that euphoria, that spot where the skill and the task meet exactly, you have an opportunity to be 100% in the present moment. It's a kind of meditation. The kind of thing that people are trying to do when they're Buddhist and Hindus, where they're meditating and they're trying to experience the direct moment. A lot of the things that the Hindus and the Buddhists and others are trying to do to get in the I want to get in the moment. Another way to do that without having to do that meditation stuff is perform a kind of meditation where you look around you in your life and you think, man, these are the tasks that I have. What tasks do I have? What people in my life have lessons for me to learn, and what can I bring to the table to really get there? It causes rapid, incredibly rapid transformations. And you will grow incredibly fast. Mentally. Your IQ will explode, guys. If you try to learn the lessons of the people that God's put in your life, or the people that are in your life, your peers that are equally yoked, you will rapidly develop. And when the devil came to Jesus, now obviously, he's pretty, he may not be like God, right? But outside of God and Jesus, the devil, he's pretty high ranked. Wasn't he like one of the higher ranking angels? Wouldn't you say? When the devil came to tempt Jesus for 40 days, that's iron sharpening iron. He didn't just come there, whether the devil likes it or not. The greater the challenge that he put on Jesus, the fact that Jesus could match that challenge rapidly developed Christ. Not the God part, but the man part. Guys, the man part. If you're challenged by the devil directly and you survive that, it makes you stronger. Ask Job. God was laughing at that situation. He's like, go ahead. Try Job out. Because God knew that in the end it would make Job stronger. He became stronger than he was before. If Michael Jordan plays against Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan plays against another professional basketball player, Michael Jordan gets better. If Michael Jordan plays against me, he ain't going to get any better. But if that same professional athlete played ball with another professional athlete, then that player digs deep and gets way better. They enter that zone of proximal development and they do awesome things. Figure out what your game is, what your purpose is in this life. And make sure that you're playing ball with those people in your life. Without being needy or having any expectations. In other words, without needing anything from God. Would you? Without having any expectations, God's already given you everything you need. No extra rewards in heaven whatsoever. Have you ever reached out to God for fun? For fun. You go out of your way to learn the lessons that God's put in your life. You go out of your way to listen to what God's been saying to you for like your whole life through everyone that you know. Go out of your way and go, you know what? I might be going to heaven, but while I'm here, I'm going to kick butt. I'm going to listen to what God's saying. Or at the very, very least, I'm going to pay attention to the people that are in my life so I can grow rapidly. We all learn from experience. That's right. But the people that are in your life right now, every one of them, they all represent a lesson that you're supposed to learn. Every single speck that you see in your neighbor's eye is a beam in your eye. All of them. Every one of them. And when the devil went to play ball with Jesus, that was iron sharpening iron. That's the best. The devil's the top ranking one, isn't he? That's the best of them. Devil himself came after Jesus. Jesus responded to that. It only made him stronger. Only made him stronger. That's the reason why the devil doesn't attack us all the time. That's the real reason. Because the devil doesn't want us to get stronger. Alright? Rather us just play Xbox, guys. The reason why I brought up the zone of proximal development relative to this fun with God thing is because you always have the most fun when you're using everything you have to accomplish a goal that you can barely accomplish. Michael Jordan has a lot more fun playing ball with Kobe Bryant than he does playing ball with me. Right? That's why. So if you want to maximize your fun, rise to the challenge. If you want to maximize your fun, stop aiming beyond that circle. Stop aiming beyond what you think is out of reach and start accomplishing what's right in front of you. All the people that are in your direct circle, do everything you can to open up that communication and learn the lessons, the lifelong lessons that we have been ignoring our whole life. Because each one of them contains a message from God. The Word of God is not just in the Bible. God's speaking to us all day long. The people in your life, listen to them and respond. It doesn't mean you got to absorb their philosophy. It doesn't mean you got to go evil. It doesn't mean you got to like hang out with non-believers and then it messes you up, like Paul says. The people that are in your life, in your immediate circle, if you were to write down the top 10 people who are in your life right now, every single one of them have a lesson from God for you to learn. The people that are your peers, they teach you much faster than the teacher does, scientifically. And God puts these people in our life to rapidly develop us. And when we get in that zone of proximal development, not only how does that happen? The skills that we're using, that we bring out, meet the challenge exactly. Where the challenge isn't too hard or too easy, but you have exactly the skills to meet the challenge of your life, whatever that is. When you do that, you get in a state of euphoria, where you get lost in your task, whatever that task is. Which the best task, what I'm talking about, is your purpose, your life purpose, why you were born. Have the skills that's been growing in you your whole life, developing, and have it meet that task of your life purpose. It will connect exactly, and you will reach this euphoria where you get lost in it, and you will be in the immediate present moment, and you will do what people who've been meditating for 50 years can't do. You will experience the direct experience of God in your life. Because if you remember your purpose, you will remember who you were before you were born.